Who won and who lost in the early portion of Baltimore Ravens organized team activities? We talk about that and so much more coming up on a bonus edition of Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of Locked On Ravens, a bonus edition of Locked On Ravens. We're free and available on all podcasting platforms, including in video form on YouTube and audio form, wherever you get your shows. We are your daily Ravens podcast. We bring you daily Ravens coverage Monday through Friday, plus some of these bonus episodes as well here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, thank you so much for being here and making Locked On Ravens your first listen each and every day. We're free and available on all podcasting platforms, including video form on YouTube and audio form, wherever you get your shows. So if you want some 5 day per week plus more daily Ravens coverage, be sure to keep it locked on Ravens. A little bonus episode here today. Nothing too crazy. Hopefully your weekend is off to a good start. Hopefully you got something planned for this Saturday. I think I have a busy one coming up, but had to make some time to get in this bonus episode of the show. The reason I'm doing it is because we really didn't have enough time to dive into everything that I wanted to over the course of the week. So I've decided that instead of just never talking about it or waiting until a little later to do it, I'm just like, you know what? Why don't we do some bonus episodes? So talked a lot about OTAs over the last couple of days, what Ravens players, Raven coaches had to say, some of the workouts, but I want to get into some early Ravens winners and losers from the early portion of Ravens OTAs. And I think it's a good conversation to have. Obviously, this doesn't define what these players are going to do come training camp, come preseason, but can be an indication of some things, some moving pieces that are going on. So first part of the show, talk about some winners. Second part of the show, talk about some losers. Pretty straightforward. Then in the final part of the show, I want to dive into some more notes from the workouts and also just getting into, in general, more quotes from players and coaches. I know we talked a lot about what Lamar Jackson had to say, what Todd Monken had to say, but other players also spoke, coaches as well. So talking about some roles for those guys also. Let's get into the content. Talking about first the winners from OTAs so far. Now, this is only the first session. There are 3 different sessions of OTAs. Obviously, week 1 we are now done with. Week 2 is coming up this week, and then week 3 is going to be the week after that. So 3 different sessions. They're done with 1 of 3 of those workouts. Now, in terms of winners, I think there were some pretty positive reports. Well, first of all, I think a winner is the Ravens organization because they have a lot of guys who came in, especially during that second day on Wednesday. Lamar Jackson, Roquan Smith, Derrick Henry, a lot of their vets were in the building. And I think that's a really good sign of just where the team is right now and the goals that this team has. Now, talk about OTAs. They are not mandatory. They are voluntary. So it's not like everybody is required to be there. If you show up, you're doing that of your own free will. It's your own volition to do that. The fact that Baltimore had so many vets there gives me a lot of encouragement. It is not the be all end all. I'm not trashing any veteran who wasn't there. It's their right? And so if they show up, awesome. If they don't, awesome. Now, I'd prefer, and I'm sure the organization does too, as many players as possible to show up because you're able to get work in with your teammates, get work in with the coaches. And sometimes vets, they don't want to show up. They do their own thing. And again, that's their right. But I'm glad we got to see a lot of vets, even if they didn't show up for the third day. I think Lamar Jackson was in California on the final day after being in Baltimore for the second day. But still, the fact that he showed up at all, it makes me feel good about where this team's mindset is. Now, in terms of other winners, Devin Leary got really good reports from OTAs. And I think for me, Leary was a pick where I wasn't necessarily sure about that one and was probably my worst graded pick of their draft, but he was impressive during OTAs. It was noted that he made a lot of strong throws during the day on Thursday, had a nice touchdown on a wheel route to Justice Hill, who got behind Chris Board. Also had a couple of passes downfield to undrafted rookie wideout Dayton Wade, and then had 3 other passes to Charlie Kohler, Isaiah Likely, and Riley Sharp, the tight ends there. Now, he did have a couple of interceptions on the day, but his ball placement was impressive. He got picked off by undrafted rookie safety Jordan Tolles, who I would, again, classify a winner, and Jalen Armour-Davis as well. So both those guys are winners, but Leary made a really strong case here. John Harbaugh saying that he's going to be in the competition for the third quarterback spot, and we'll talk about Malik Cunningham in the second part of the show, but really strong Thursday for Devin Leary. Now, Tavius Robinson, another winner from OTAs here. And by the way, shout out to Ryan Mink for the notes here on these guys. Noted by Ryan Mink that Tavius Robinson was a player to keep your eye on. Second-year player, had a really big role for Baltimore in his first season, at least more of a role than I thought he was going to have. He ended up beating Daniel Falele on a nice jump and swipe move and ended up disrupting a pass from Josh Johnson. And you can clearly tell that he spent a lot of time in the weight room this offseason. So we talk about Odafe Owe and David Ojabo taking big leaps this season, at least hopefully taking big leaps. I think Tavius Robinson is someone to keep an eye out on. And I think, honestly, he's going to open the year as the fourth inside linebacker. And honestly, a bold prediction here is I wouldn't be shocked if he opens it over Ojabo just based off how he performed last year, getting the reps, and maybe they want to ease Ojabo in. I don't really know. But Travis Jones was another player who got rave reviews from the first session of OTAs here. He's another big winner. He's somebody that he was feasting essentially the entire OTAs, sniffed out a screen of Justice Hill, according to Ryan there, and tipped a pass up in the air. And apparently Brett Urban celebrated on that too, so that was fun. But Travis Jones is my clear-cut pick for breakout player of the year for Baltimore this year. It's really not even close, to be honest with you. Jones has shown a bunch of flashes over his first 2 years in the league, and such a talented player. Still don't know how he fell to the third round for the Ravens a couple years ago. It was, I don't know. Can't explain it to you. But the Ravens got the benefit of that, and Jones is a player that got a ton of awesome reviews during OTAs so far, which, again, just absolutely does not shock me in the slightest. Malik Harrison had the play of the day, apparently, on Wednesday and had a strong practice on Thursday, too. Would have had a sack or / big quarterback hit. You obviously don't want to do that in OTAs, but had a nice looping inside pass rush. Also covered Isaiah Likely down the field as well. As I mentioned, Jalen Armour-Davis, a winner. He's someone that has obviously not been on the field due to back-to-back injury-spoiled seasons. He had the interception. Also, he had good coverage on Tylan Wallace, on Sean Ryan. So he's an impressive athlete, as Ryan notes in his article here, and I totally agree with him, but the health is the absolute factor. Dayton Wade, the undrafted rookie, he ended up having a really nice day. He's 5'9", but had a one-handed catch. He ended up reaching back with his left hand, which is really cool. And Scotty Washington actually ended up having a really nice catch as well. But we're going to be talking about a lot of these guys too. Nate Wiggins had a nice play. Devontae Walker had a false start penalty, but he did bounce back with a sliding catch on a comeback route. So again, Baltimore's it's feeling out time, especially for these younger players. It's getting the reps in, especially for some of those rookies too, Leary, Walker, Wiggins, etc. You're feeling out the process, your first NFL practices, right? They had the rookie minicamp, obviously, but your first practices. It's intriguing to me to see all these guys and what their roles could be. Like Travis Jones, Tavius Robinson, those are players who could have really big roles this year, but there are also guys in front of them on the depth chart. So it's like, whose reps are they taking? Whose snaps are they taking? But it's a good sign to see those guys getting going early. And wouldn't be shocked again if we saw a couple of second or third year players step up. In fact, we have to see that. If you're the Ravens, you have to see that, because the way that this roster is now constructed, they lost a lot of vets and they had contingency plans in place. But now it's time for your contingency plans to step up, right? Talking about guys like Trenton Simpson and Robinson and Jones on the offensive line, right? Ben Cleveland, Andrew Voorhees, hopefully stepping up. Roger Rosengarten being a rookie if he wins that job, maybe even Falele. So it's about roles. What is your role going to be? And are you going to capitalize on the role that is being placed in front of you, or is someone going to leapfrog you and take that? So going to be interesting, but Baltimore's roster is certainly constructed in a way right now. Not saying they're not going to add anybody else, but we're going to see. We're going to see how it happens. So coming up in the second part of the show, we will flip over, talk about some losers in the early OTA session, and just talk about the workouts in general. So be sure to stay tuned. Plenty to talk about here on Locked On Ravens. First, the show is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors is everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, superchargers, roof rack, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has it covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. All the parts you need, the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Otherwise, all the exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. We're back our second segment of Locked On Ravens. Kevin Oestreicher still talking with you here on this Saturday, a bonus edition episode of the show. Really appreciate everybody taking some time out of your weekend here and making Locked On Ravens a part of your day. Always appreciate it, whether you're an everydayer, whether you're first time into the show, or you're somewhere in the middle. Appreciate all the support here every single day whenever you tune in. Now, we talked about the winners of OTAs, the early portion, at least, of OTAs. Well, let's talk about the losers now. And there are only a few, right? I don't really have too much to say on this, but I do think someone is Malik Cunningham. And this is not anything on Cunningham's talent, but it certainly seems like there was a lot more excitement about him when he was claimed off the Patriots practice squad late last season about, oh, this could really be the heir apparent to Lamar Jackson's backup role, right? Tyler Huntley had been in that role, and everybody was kind of wondering about, well, who is it going to be? Tyler Huntley felt like he was going to leave him for agency, which he did. I still don't understand where the Tyler Huntley decision came from, considering Cleveland already has like 3 other quarterbacks not named Tyler Huntley. So I don't even know if he makes that roster, if we're being honest here. But that aside, it felt like Cunningham had the potential to be the guy. We saw the flashes. Obviously, the athletic ability is what pops off the page and needed some work as a passer, but feels like, and we talked about this with Kadri Ismail a little earlier in the week, but this feels more like a permanent transition from him from quarterback to wide receiver. And, I just don't know if they didn't believe in his passing ability enough or what it was. And I'm not saying Cunningham can't make it as a wide receiver, but I just think he's a loser in the process because it felt like there was a more established role for him if he were to continue as a quarterback and develop that way. And if everything went well, really felt like there was a path. Whereas for wide receiver, obviously there's a lot more saturation, and the Ravens essentially already have their top 6 right now. So I don't know where the path is for him. Not saying there isn't one, but it's going to be a lot harder there because Josh Johnson is not the long-term answer, and he's going to be the number 2 this year, barring anything crazy. So then Devin Leary is the 3, but it kind of, I don't know. I kind of felt that coming, especially once John Harbaugh said nothing about him during the post-draft press conference. And he mentioned Josh Johnson, mentioned Devin Leary, but did not mention Malik Cunningham in that quarterback group. So I would probably consider Cunningham a loser in the whole process, which is unfortunate. I do think, he had some ability there, but Baltimore clearly thought otherwise. And new position for Malik Cunningham. And actually, Rashad Bateman's old number 12. So that's a little funny. But then you have, again, Daniel Falele got beat. And I'm not saying he's a huge loser, but it just feels like to me, with Rosengarten coming in, he had a clear path to a job while Rosengarten was not there, with Morgan Moses being traded to the Jets. But with Falele, the question, for him is he's entering year 3 at this point, and there's going to be a bunch of conversation with him about where is his role. Do you kick him inside? Is he going to be just your backup tackle, which I think is fine, right? If Falele is your backup tackle, I see no harm in that. But to me, it's not that Rosengarten has won the job or anything at right tackle, but it feels like that's what the inevitability is, where I don't think you're drafting an offensive lineman that high if you don't plan to at least have him compete for that job. And ideally, that's who you want out there. If Falele beats him in training camp fair and square in the preseason, sure. If he's the best guy, you start him and you start who your best guys are. But it just feels like to me on the offensive line, the projected group, which is Ben Cleveland. Well, if we want to go left to right, Andrew Voorhees at left guard, Ben Cleveland at right guard, and then Roger Rosengarten at right tackle. There's no room for Falele in there. Now, I think he's a heck of a backup, right? I think there's still a lot of things he has to work on, but if you're not necessarily relying on him for a full game of snaps or whatnot, I think that's fine. But in my opinion, the offensive line is one of the bigger intriguing spots to me this year, and it's not just because of the new pieces, right? I mean, Linderbaum is Linderbaum, Tyler Linderbaum. You don't have to guess with him. He's the man, one of the best centers in the league, if not the best center in the league, and there are no question marks there. But Ronnie Stanley, what's Ronnie Stanley going to look like this year? And if it doesn't pan out for him, obviously he's now a free agent, but there's still one more year of him. I'm not sure Baltimore would bench him if it came to that. Obviously, I think if you needed to, you should, but sports organizations are loyal to their players. And I think there is a level of loyalty. And we've honestly seen Baltimore do this a little bit, where sometimes they can be over loyal to certain guys. And look, I'd rather have an organization be over loyal than under loyal, right? The Ravens don't necessarily do a ton of guys dirty, right? I mean, I'm sure players have stories and it's like, oh, I felt done dirty by this organization. But Baltimore is widely known as a stand-up organization. And if you talk about over loyalty, it's more so like what happened with Greg Roman a couple years ago, where they probably kept him around a little too long. Or, I know some people even have that conversation about current coaches or current players on the team. But Stanley is such an intriguing point for me. One, because it is Lamar's blind side, first of all. Like, that's such an important position. But two, injuries have clearly taken a toll on Stanley. It's not just the serious one he suffered, feels like all those years ago now, but it's the lingering stuff, right? Like the ankle's a big deal, but the knee stuff is concerning. So he, by all accounts, he feels great at the moment, and that's awesome. But, we're done with 17 weeks of a season. That's going to be huge, especially because the thing I'd like to see out of the offensive line this year from Baltimore is continuity. I think we've seen too much over the course of the last 3-4 years, maybe if you want to go back that far. Guys are getting injured in training camp. Guys are getting injured early in the season. The Ravens are rotating in and out a bunch of offensive line. It's just all these different O-line combinations, and it doesn't help anything, especially when you need to get all these new guys up to speed and new guys acclimated, where you are replacing 3 starters on your offensive line. And I'm not saying the offensive line didn't need to be upgraded. I still thought that, even if they retain 1 or 2 of those guys, they still needed to upgrade certain positions there. But I think it's going to be a process of trying to find out how these guys work together. It will probably help if a guy like Andrew Voorhees starts at left guard, where you have Ronnie Stanley and Tyler Linderbaum sandwiched in between him as steadying presences over there. But, having Rosengarten out there on an island with Ben Cleveland, I mean, Ben Cleveland's been around for a little bit now, but it's not, the steadying veteran presence that Kevin Zeitler was. It's a little different dynamic. So, to me, I think Faalele is a fine backup. I know I kind of got a little off topic there on the offensive line rant, but it's important, right? To me, everything for an offense starts up front. Lamar is awesome. Lamar is the player in the league that can get away with poor offensive line play. A lot of quarterbacks can, but I think Lamar, if you were to say which quarterback can get away with the worst offensive line play, it's Lamar, based off his ability to move out of the pocket, scramble around, even find the open guy while on the move, and also with his elusivity and agility, which we now know is even going to be crazier this year. But when he's in the pocket, sometimes he can get a little we've seen it over the course of his career, right? With bad offensive lines, he has gotten skittish in the pocket, and he's not at his best when that happens. He's at his best when he can lock in and just figure things out along the way and feel comfortable and secure in the pocket. And especially also in the run game, right? The Ravens are going to try to run the ball with Derrick Henry. You got to have a secure offensive line. You got to have guys that can open up lanes, get to the second level, take on one-on-one blocks, or one-on-one, tacklers. But that's the dynamic you have to work with here if you're the Ravens, is you're going to have a bunch of younger guys on the offensive line. I think that was kind of the goal, right? To get younger, to get more athletic. I think that is what Todd Monken wants in his offensive line, because I've talked about this before, but not only did Todd Monken inherit, Lamar Jackson as his quarterback, the offensive weapons, etc. He inherited the offensive line. And so we kind of saw him, bring in Odell and kind of shape the wide receiver room a little bit. Zay Flowers comes in, but the offensive line was not really, all those guys were there, right? So that Todd Monken got to reshape this offensive line a little bit to maybe what his offensive identity is a little more, which is younger and is more athletes. So we're going to see how that pans out for him. But coming up in the final part of the show, we'll talk about some general notes from the workouts, get into a couple more quotes, talk about Rashad Bateman, Kyle Hamilton. Stay tuned. We'll have to get to here on Locked On Ravens. First, this show is brought to you by Yahoo Finance, and this show is sponsored by Yahoo Finance. Now, I've been using Yahoo Finance, our sponsor today, and I think to me, I was always thinking to myself, wouldn't it be great if I could just see all my investments and retirement accounts in one place? Because sometimes one thing's over here, another thing's over there. It's just all this mumbo jumbo everywhere. But with Yahoo Finance, you can actually consolidate your views from multiple accounts into one hub and access the expert analysis you need to tend your entire portfolio with confidence. So for me, an investment account, 401ks, all those things, I've been using Yahoo Finance to consolidate them in one place, and that's made it so much easier to manage all of them. Plus, I want to grow my portfolio a bunch, especially with the rising cost of inflation. Inflation, it's a huge deal, right? To me, it's something I've been trying to combat for a while, and Yahoo Finance helps me with that because they give me access to the news data and tools that I need in order to help reach that financial freedom I've been looking for a long time. So for more than 25 years, Yahoo Finance has been the brand behind every great investor. And for me, I'm not that seasoned as an investor. So whether you're a seasoned investor or just looking for extra guidance, Yahoo Finance gives you all the tools and data you need in one place. Plus, their community is great. With a community of over 90 million users each month, their real strength is helping you on your way to financial success. For comprehensive financial news analysis and more, visit the brand behind every great investor, yahoofinance.com, the number one financial destination, yahoofinance.com. That's yahoofinance.com. We're back, our final segment of Locked On Ravens. Bonus episode here on Saturday. Kevin Oestreicher still talking with you. Didn't go anywhere. Recording this a little late. Well, I guess pretty early on Saturday morning. Actually, did the Ryan Ripken show. Went solo. Talked some baseball on there. So if you want more content from me, obviously keep it locked on here on Locked On Ravens. But if you want to see more of me, go over to the Ryan Ripken show as well. I have a lot of fun over there with the guys. And we're building something special, both here on Locked On Ravens and over there. So it's been awesome. Just seeing communities, right? Communities are everything. So here on Locked On Ravens, video form, audio form, social media, subtext, all the communities we've grown here. It's been a lot. I've been hosting this show for almost 5 years, and to just see the growth and everybody joining in and seeing the show evolve, it doesn't happen without the support of everybody. So I can't thank everybody enough for everything over the years. And hey, once we hit 5, that'll be a big milestone. So appreciate everybody sticking along for the ride here with me on Locked On Ravens. Speaking of which, be sure to subscribe, follow along, video form, audio form. It's the same show. If you want to listen one day, watch another, so you're not missing out on any content either way. Bonus episodes, we do them sometimes. We also are going to go live. We do go live after every single piece of Ravens big news, plus after every single Ravens game. And also something new we're going to start next season is we're going to have pregame episodes, game day episodes. So those will come out 6 a.m. on Sundays. It'll be classified under the bonus episode aspect of it, but bonus episodes come out every game day the Ravens play. So that'll be exciting. Now let's talk about some of the news and notes from the workouts in general. To me, I think one of the bigger things, I mean, Lamar Jackson's weight got so much run and so much, it's just the whole thing was talked about forever. We're not going to talk about a ton of that today. I mean, we can touch on it pretty briefly, but for me, if Lamar feels comfortable playing at his current weight right now, which he said was around 2-something, didn't give a specific weight this time around. If he feels more confident being more agile and not having as much bulk on him, more power to him, right? That's his decision. And to me, we haven't seen that Lamar in a couple of years where he's still fast. He's still elusive, right? He's still Lamar Jackson, but it didn't feel like, he had extra gear after extra gear after extra gear after extra gear early in his rookie season. It didn't feel like he had as many extra gears over the past 2, especially in the AFC Championship game, which I've talked about a lot. So I just feel like for him, he's going to feel a lot more confident this season, which will help him out both in the passing game and in the running game. So super excited about that for Lamar. But the other thing that was a big trend was just the AFC Championship game in general. I think everybody's tried to move on from it, some better than others. I just try to throw it out the window, not think about it too much. But Lamar Jackson, Zay Flowers, Kyle Hamilton, John Hart, I mean, everybody has talked about how the players are still not over it, and it's something that's on their minds a lot. I mean, Flowers and his fumble that was a huge turning point in the game said that he still hasn't gotten over it. Kyle Hamilton as well. It's a dynamic where revenge, or whatever you want to call it, right? Redemption. The Ravens are out for it this season, but they have to execute on that, right? You can't just be all talk about it. I don't think they are, but Lamar Jackson kind of said, like, beating the Chiefs in the regular season doesn't do anything for him, right? I think it'd be the playoffs that really were to do it, because regular season is regular season. You need to have a good regular season to make the playoffs, put yourself in good position for the playoffs. But we've heard that story with the Ravens a bunch, whereas they're a great regular season team, but they haven't been able to get over the playoff hump for whatever reason you want to say. But that's part of why I think it's important for them to not only remember it during the regular season, but you got to remember it when it matters. And the regular season certainly matters, but obviously the playoffs are what defines you essentially in the season. Now, another thing that was a big topic was Derrick Henry's workload. Todd Monken had talked about this, and we talked about this yesterday with Rocco DeSangro. But Todd Monken saying if he carries it 300 times, we're having a hell of a year. It means we're running a lot. It means we're up in games, wanting to finish, wanting to be the closer. So it feels like, the Ravens haven't had a bell cow in a while now. And it was, splits with Gus Edwards, J.K. Dobbins, and that's what it was. But Derrick Henry's going to be getting the majority of the carries here. And that's how it should be. Henry's 30, so you still want to manage his workload effectively. Don't want to just run him into the ground. I think Tennessee did that a couple of times. In fact, a lot of years that he was there. But, in my opinion, Henry's going to be the guy. He has to be the guy for you. You're going to still involve Keaton Mitchell when he's back. You're going to involve Justice Hill. But Derrick Henry, I would assume he gets probably at least 16 carries per game, 15 carries per game. And with the Ravens running the ball so much, probably take the overs on that for me. At least I would. Now, another thing is Kyle Hamilton, he's going to have, the role is going to be huge, but the Ravens are challenging him to be more of a leader. We know that he is one of the leaders on this defense in terms of his play, but with that does come responsibility, and that's what Hamilton said. He said, I'm still a young guy relatively, but with power comes responsibility, and heavy is the head that wears the crown. And it's true. More responsibilities as these guys get older, these guys get more seasoned, and for a guy like Kyle Hamilton, who was essentially the chess piece of your defense, that's a big deal. So Hamilton, I'm sure, will have more of a vocal role this year. We've talked about Jamal Adams a lot too. It's good they're shopping around. And I think if everything goes according to plan, we'll do another bonus episode tomorrow talking a little bit more about Jamal Adams, because I didn't have time to do that this week with OTAs, at least as much as I wanted to. But they're looking around the safety market, which is big. I think they do need safety depth. That's probably their biggest need right now. But for me, it's important that they get the right skill set. If they bring in Jamal Adams and somebody else, and I'm all for it, but it feels like Jamal Adams is not necessarily replacing Geno Stone. It's replacing Patrick Queen. So that's going to be interesting. And also Rashad Bateman, hopefully a big year for him, but he has the faith of everybody. Todd Monken, John Harbaugh, Lamar Jackson, they are lining it up for him on a red carpet. Go take the role, go be you. He has potential. I'm still a big Rashad Bateman guy. I've been pretty vocal about that. But Odell Beckham's not there. It always felt like, and I've said this a ton, if you're an everyday, you're probably like, oh, here he goes again. But I've said where it always felt like there was a who's number 2, who's number 3 wide receiver battle between Bateman and Beckham, and there was never really any clarity. And I'm sure that kind of had Bateman looking over his shoulder a little bit, where now there's no one challenging him. He's in a role where he's not the number 1 like 2021 or 2022, where Zay Flowers wasn't there. Zay Flowers is there. Zay Flowers is your one. I think this is a perfect opportunity for Bateman. It's a huge year for him, and the team is certainly outlining it for him in terms of, we're going to need you this year, and we need you to take over that role. So OTAs continuing this upcoming week. Obviously, there's another session after this week as well, but still, you can take away something from each of the weeks, and it's going to be exciting to see how the guys respond over the next 2 and who is there for the next 2 weeks as well. So I have you here today, though, on this edition of Locked on Ravens, a bonus episode. Thank you so much for tuning in on this Saturday. We will be back here tomorrow, barring anything crazy. We'll be doing another bonus episode, so be sure to stay tuned for that. Like, subscribe, follow along. We'll see you right back here tomorrow on Locked on Ravens.